Hello, Minecraftians! I am your host, the Dark Lord, and I bid you a warm welcome to Realm News, where I put the real in Realm and expand your mind one block at a time. Episode 6, people. Wow, we are clipping away, aren't we? I can't believe we're already at episode 6, the desert biome, and all that it entails. I am bringing the scorching earth and the sizzle of this hostile environment right to your eardrums. Last week, I told you to bring your snowshoes. Well, leave those behind and strap up in armor and grab your sword. You will need the protection, especially from the husks that roam around the desert. A land of never-ending zombies. The sun does not kill this variation of zombie. We will cover all the essential elements that compose this biome, give you some tips on how to survive as well. So if you are ready to learn about ancient desert structures, some archaeology, the life that entails the desert, all from my personal accounts in my kingdom, the Great Farthian Desert, then I urge you to pack your bag. Make a suit of fresh armor. You want that to be solid. You're going to be attacked everywhere. And get a lot of food to bring with you. It's going to be scarce out there. And bring a ton of wood because there's no wood hardly. And don't forget that bed. As always, torches. Sharpen the sword. Bring a shovel because it's just sand out there. And get in that minecart and follow me as we travel on my Royals rail line going from Jonestown City to the bustling desert town called Santa Fe out in the Great Farthian Desert. As we coast on our minecarts to the Great Farthian Desert in my realm, just sit back and relax. Take a view at my beautiful landscape within my realm and just see what all of Minecraft has to generate as I make this announcement to you. Yes, I have something to say. It's poll time! That's right, everybody. It is poll time. That part of the episode where I will be reading off a poll from yours truly, the Dark Lord. Because I love polls, and I think you love polls too. Such as last week's poll where I asked about 5 tools. The question being, which one would you choose if you could only pick one? And the pickaxe won with 76 votes out of 111. It was a total blowout, people. Well, this poll I am about to dive into had a great turnout as well. But it was not a blowout. It was a close race up to the last minute on this poll. I posed a basic question with 3 choices to pick from. The question I posed: which of these 3 biomes in the overworld is the harshest to survive in? Here were the 3 choices I provided. 1. The desert. 2. Tundra. Or the snow biomes. What we covered last week, if you remember. And 3 being the Badlands. All very harsh biomes, in my opinion, people. Some people would say there's probably harsher, and there probably are. Going on, like I said, this was close. Almost a tie between 2 of the 3, the whole way through, people. We also had a good amount of voters on this poll as well. A total of 86 people voted on this. I was very happy to see that turnout. I'm happy when anybody votes on my polls. It's fun to see. So I thank everyone for voting. And you listeners can vote too, right here in this podcast on Spotify. I always put polls, and you guys, if they're usually timed for like a week. So try to get down there and vote before the polls close, okay? But after you listen to the episode, try to go down there into the About section of my podcast, and it should be in there. Let me begin with the loser of this poll, though, okay? And again, this was from last week's episode. If you listen to it, the loser in this one was the tundra or the snow biomes with 17 votes, coming in third place. 17 votes, that's, I mean, out of the 80-some that we had, I mean, it's nothing to scoff at, but I can see why it would be considered the least imposing of the three. If you listened to last week's episode over snow biomes, then you know that you can survive and thrive out there in that environment. It's a desolate place, but not as hostile as these two other biomes I listed. I mean, if you recall, the snow biome lacks a variety of hostile mobs, meaning there's none other but the strays out there. You don't have to worry about creepers or zombies or the other nefarious beings that want to harm you. It's just strays and the occasional polar bear that's aggressive or has a cub that they want to defend and will just attack you. Like, if you remember, I got killed by a polar bear researching that episode. And also you have those ice spikes out there, so there's places for shelter. The sand in the desert is kind of hard for shelters because it collapses. It has gravity effect. And also in those snow biomes, you have plenty of food in rabbits. They're very plentiful out there, if you recall. And I went on explaining that episode about how you can also, besides using them as a meat source, you can use their hides for a leather, and you can craft leather items such as leather boots, which you would need. And again, there's the polar bears, like I said, that are somewhat hostile, but you can kill those and they'll drop salmon for food. So it's a harsh climate. That's why I lumped it into out of these three. I made it three, for this poll. But in my head, I thought it was the least harsh environment. Let's move on to the runner-up. Coming in second place is the desert, and not by far. The desert had 34 votes. And can you guess how many votes the winner had, people? 35 votes. I wasn't kidding. This thing was so close. The desert fell short by 1. Badlands won by a rabbit's hair. I was watching this poll very closely, and it was interesting to see it go back and forth. I personally voted for the Badlands myself. Not the episode I'm covering this week, but the Badlands. I should say that I voted for the Badlands because I have a personal experience in the Badlands. The Sun King, my brother, the Sun King, and I, in my realm, went on I believe a 2,500 block trek. Maybe it was 3,000 blocks long out through the Badlands, and we only saw just terracotta of various colors, red sand, dead brush, and cacti everywhere. Lots of gold to mine, but we kept on going I wanted to see how far this biome extended. We ran out of resources, and we had to turn back. We kind of just gave up. We spent a good evening trekking out there, building little outposts along the way. But like I said, lots of gold to mine in that biome. And I do have this. There was a Redditor that commented on this poll that I want to mention. Kind of corrected me on the Badlands being totally dead. This person goes by the name Whittle_Willow. And on this Reddit poll, they went ahead and said, quote, there's a Badlands sub-biome that has oak tree forests, end quote. I learned that. That was new to me. I didn't believe them at first, so I had to fact check this because my brother and I didn't see anything out there. Nothing out there. I can't wait till they introduce an armadillo so I can see those next time I venture out there. Some life. But no, they said that there's oak tree forest subbiome in the Badlands, and I looked it up, and there's a wooded Badlands subbiome with oak trees, which is great to know. I guess I need to look a little harder next time I venture into that place. But we will get into all that encompasses the Badlands on next week's episode, people. This is the desert. So I don't want to delve into the Badlands in this one. I do see why the desert fell in one vote short to the Badlands, because it is hostile. The husks meander around all day, 24 hours a day. There's no relief from hostile mobs in the desert, and that makes it a true harsh biome. Not to take that for granted at all. It is hard to get buildings, structures, I should say, built out there while you are worrying about getting bit. Paranoia is a real problem out in the desert in Minecraft. However, I thought that was a great poll and very insightful, everybody. I am glad that Whittle_Willow said that. I'm glad to know trees are out there in that hellscape. And now it's time for us to sweat in the desert. Let's go, folks. Allow me to begin with a tale of how I came upon what is now dubbed the Great Farthian Desert. And it is great. It is vast and big. I named it after who I gifted this land to, who was my brother, the Sun King of Farthia. His realm's name is Farthia. That's where he hails from. I shall begin my story here. I had stationed myself in a new outpost that I call New Australia. I named it New Australia because of its coral reefs that lie in its warm ocean right along the coast. These coral reefs remind me of the great coral reef that I've read about outside of Australia, hence the name New Australia. I had discovered New Australia while on a navigational surveying voyage of the Great Ombre Dieu Ocean that expands thousands of blocks in all directions. And I kid you not, it's a vast ocean that I originated into the game next to. New Australia was my first introduction to the desert, and that's why New Australia is being mentioned in this podcast for this week. It is actually now a town that was formed, I would say, about 2 months ago. So I evolved it from an old desert jungle outpost. And a couple months ago, I sent some colonists out there to that outpost, and I built it up into a community. It is now a thriving town that's ready to just be built upon. It's connected to my Royals Rail. That's what I call my long rails that go thousands of blocks. That's the rail line, Royals Rail, for the kings that come to my world. We ride it. And it's situated, this town, New Australia, it's situated exactly where the jungle meets the desert. So this community is in a very niche area. It's, I believe, my only town that is smack dab in between two biomes. So it's a very unique city. But as I said, this was my first time seeing a Minecraft desert when I came out here and founded this outpost. I was so happy to have such an abundance of sand all of a sudden. My sand reserves were running low and I needed a new source. My kingdom is sand hungry, I should say. I have around 20 towns and I'm building more all the time. So there's a lot of buildings that require windows. But at this time, I needed to supply the Charmois City blast furnace for glass production. As I said, my kingdom relies heavily on glass. It's in its architecture and religious buildings, such as its reflection rooms. Those are my form of churches. They're called reflection rooms, just to give you a little bit of my own headcanon, where the scholars who are my version of priests hang in there and they read my shadow codex. So a lot of these reflection rooms require a lot more glass than other buildings that I use in my construction projects, because they're more elaborate, these religious areas in my realm. Also, I like to use a lot of glass for my viewing towers that have 360-degree views, so I can go up high up in the air in these viewing towers that look like airport terminals, or where the people that land aircraft or sit up in those towers. That's what these look like, so I can see out on the horizon 360 degrees around my cities I build. And also, I think I mentioned to you guys I fell off a sky city of mine named Columbia. Well, its entire platform is made of glass blocks, so that I need a lot of glass if I'm getting that if I'm painting that picture for you. I use a lot of glass. So I was very pleased to come upon this desert and be like, wow, I have never-ending glass now. As long as I have fuel, I have glass. But being at the edge of that desert just enticed me to explore even more. I wanted to see just how vast this biome was, because I am an explorer. The Dark Lord is an explorer. I had questions that needed to be answered. As I said, how vast is this biome? Is there life out there? In back of my head, the probabilities are likely that there's a village, a desert village out in this big biome. As I've found villages in other biomes, so why not out here? So I set sail in my chest boat along the coast of the sand dunes, the sandstone, and all the cacti that make up this desert coast. And I headed south to southeast from the New Australia outpost. I was marveling at how high these sand dunes stacked when I was in the ocean. From my perspective, in my boat craft looking up, these would be considered almost mountains, how tall these were. It was unscalable to get out of my boat and try to even get ashore in some of these places because they were so tall. I just couldn't get a foothold. You would have to dig in and it wouldn't be practical. It's sand, it just drops on you. So I couldn't go to shore if I wanted to, so I just kept paddling with the sun blazing. I also began to wonder how big this desert truly was. I had been sailing for some time at this point and just tracing along the coast for a good part of the day. I couldn't help but wonder, is this ever going to end? Surely, Mojang, you don't create these biomes to take up most of the world, do you? Who knows? It was starting to become darkish, and I don't like being out in the ocean in the dark, really, because it's just hard for me to navigate, especially on my Kindle, and the rendering rate isn't that far out, so I can't see. So I decided to head back when the sun started to drop. And it's a good thing I had placed torches along the coast earlier that day. They always proved to be useful. And those torches, with night coming, those, if you haven't learned by now, always pack a lot of torches with you for when you go off the beaten path. It's easy to get lost. I am a veteran explorer at this point, so I know all the ins and outs, and I knew how to explore well at this point in the game when I discovered this desert. So I was prepared to lay out tons of torches. So I recommend you guys always take torches. That's something I always keep on hand wherever I go, really. So I got back to my New Australia outpost and I slept that night. New Australia outpost, if I could just paint a little picture of what it looks like as a little, a describer for you listeners out there. So prior to the arrival of the colonists, it was a lot different looking. Obviously, it wasn't a town. It was essentially a bunker. And this was a common thing I would do when I was exploring places, and I'm sure you people do this as well, but if you don't, this is something I do. I like to go and it saves me on. I bring a lot of blocks and other items to build shelters that stand above ground, but it saves me so many resources if I build bunkers. Digging down, I actually acquire resources, right? Just remember, don't dig straight down. Bring ladder as well if you're doing this, right? And all the other essentials. Anyways, so Australia was a bunker in between these two biomes, and above this bunker, and I had a nice bunker underground bed. I even had a little garden down there of wheat, and I had a mine down there, and everything I needed. Is actually a pretty nice setup. Above ground, though, was like a trellis system I had set up out of stone walls, and I had a compass directory essentially above ground, a living compass directory. I like to use sunflowers a lot because I didn't have a compass forever, and I didn't have my coordinates turned on in my game forever. So I used sunflowers a lot to pinpoint me, or to help navigate me, tell me which direction I was, and that would give me an idea of how to get back to my capital cities. So I told you it was a trellis above ground, and I had a sunflower, and I used that sunflower, which always faced east, to go ahead and put up signs that said north, northeast, southwest around this trellis, so I could tell which way was which. So I had these around my kingdom, just these random stand-up compasses that are structures that tell you which direction you're headed, and I think they're very useful. Also, to give you a picture, it was walled off around this trellis compass, whatever you want to call that. It was walled off to keep out hostile mobs, which were very prevalent between these two biomes in this little niche environment. So I decided, like I did to my capital, to flood off pretty much the entire area, and I connected two oceans together and used a bucket to flood the rest so mobs wouldn't harass me anymore when I was coming up. So essentially now, if you were to fast forward and see New Australia today, it's a community that looks like it's on the ocean, but it's actually it's on sand, but it's just been flooded, and I'm essentially building out into the ocean now, artificial land. I did that with Newport. I like to flood things, but like Newport's a different example. I used lava on the backside of it to burn away and keep away mobs, so I can sleep at night when I visit the town, and it just keeps the hostile mobs at bay with all the lava and the light that the lava produces. So yeah, I like to flood my cities sometimes with lava or with water. I know that kind of sounds a little bit crazy, but that's something I do. And so I just wanted to give you that little description because I got back to my New Australia outpost, right? And I plan to sleep the night away and wake up the next day to see if I could set out a little further and explore further along the coast of the Great Farthian Desert. I had a plan when I woke up that morning to save a little bit of time and get a little further down that desert coastline so I could explore a little bit more and maybe find an end to this Farthian Desert. I had planned to maybe bypass some of the inlets that I had traced, just the day before, and that would save me a little time cutting those out because I knew that there was nothing to be seen there now. So this time I also brought supplies to build a makeshift shelter if I needed be. I do this a lot of the time. I'll bring a couple stacks of cobblestone or whatever type of stone, or it's usually a deep slate or a cobblestone or anything else random that I don't really care for that I'll just bring for a makeshift shelter for random exploration adventures. So I went out that morning and I took out my boat once again, and it was another beautiful, sunny Minecraft day. New Australia is just picturesque. All I've seen was a couple rainstorms, but besides that, it's just a beautiful outpost with crystal clear waters and usually sunny. I would vacation there if that was a place in real life, honestly. But I would have to say it was a hot one out today. The temperature was probably around 1.2 units hot. So I was pretty warm from being next to that desert coast on the ocean, but the ocean spray really helped keep my body cool while setting sail and looking for some cool stuff along the desert coastline. Before I continue this story, it's probably worth mentioning... 1.2 units. What does that mean, right? It's worth mentioning that Minecraft has a temperature system. Yep, this game blows my mind. It wasn't something I even thought about until I was researching the desert, and I came upon this information in my research, and I had to delve into it further because I figured my listeners would love to know that Minecraft has a temperature system that actually plays out in the game and help dictates where rain's going to be, snow's going to lie, which kind of dictates landscape some. But I found this awesome article titled, quote, ranking coldest to warmest Minecraft biomes, end quote, by a Moon Abbott on September 2021. So not that far back, guys. And you can find that at sportsskita.com. That will be in my show description. I post all my other stuff, and you'll find a lot of other cool things at the bottom of the show description at the end of this podcast, guys, so check that all out. First off, I had no idea that a temperature system existed, like I stated already. I just want to make that clear. It was shocking to me. But I think it's so cool now that we do have a temperature system, or now that I'm aware of it. Because now I'm going to put up these cool signposts all around my cities, my individual ones, and where their biomes are, I am going to go to this list where this article I found has a cool list of every biome and every place with the temperature, indicating the temp. And I think I'm just going to put temperature signposts around, and it would just give a little flair to the city life. Or maybe I can tweak and be like, oh, today it's 1.7 degrees out. Anyways, I just think it could get really fun. Or White Ridge is negative 0.5 units cold out today. Or the Great Farthian Desert is a 2.0 high for this time of year. Anyways, they go on to say in this article, and I want to quote this article. So here I begin. Quote, Minecraft biome temperatures range on a scale from negative 0.7 being the coldest to 2.0 being the warmest. Within that range, the biomes can be considered dry, temperate, cold, snowy, or aquatic based on the individual environments. End quote. So, negative 0.7 to 2.0. That makes a range of 1.3 where it can fluctuate in temperature, guys. Not a huge temp range, but I guess that is all Mojang needed to let the game depict where it'll snow and rain and all the other fun things that it does with the climate in the game. I thought that was very cool to learn. And I think you guys can play with that. I think you guys could even set up like little weather stations or like what I'm going to do, put up signs that states the weather. I think that will just make put more headcanon into your realm. It's just fun. I like learning all these little tidbits when I'm doing my research, and I like passing those on to you guys. I hope you get some fun out of that. Yeah, cool. I want to go ahead though before I pass this. I want to give you some examples that the article provided, and I'm just going to give you a few. Like, I want to start with the 3 coldest biomes listed here. That'd be the snow-capped peaks, which is at negative 0.7, being the coldest. Lofty peaks, and that's the same, negative 0.7. And then the cold taiga is a negative 0.5, so a little bit warmer than taiga. Guess that makes sense. It's not up as high in elevation, so I think that's probably why. Now, the hottest 3 biomes that they describe, they all get the same temperature rating of 2.0, the hottest in the game. And the 3 hottest biomes are desert, badlands, and the nether. That's a no-brainer, isn't it? Of course, the nether is going to be hot, and also nice to know that the desert is as hot as Minecraft's version of hell. So I'm literally at the coast of a very hot biome, obviously. And by the way, I'll have to do an episode on the nether sometime soon, guys. I know you guys are probably itching to hear about some of my my theories on the nether and whatnot. That'll be coming up one day. But let's get back to my desert story real quick. As I was saying, I was making my way along the desert coast to see just how big it was, right? And what was out there. I wasn't bored along my journey because this coral reef turned out to be a lot bigger than I thought. From New Australia along this whole coast is just been corals and sea pickles that are glowing down below, which is so cool. I did steal a few of those sea pickles, and I threw them into my aquarium in Seatown, and they're pretty neat. And I have a little pond in Seatown, and I put them in there too. But I had no idea that this game had coral reefs until I traveled out to New Australia, and I didn't know that there were so many colors and just how beautiful they are. And I want to go back with Silk Touch and collect them, because if you don't have Silk Touch, they just die. It's kind of realistic, because if you mess with coral in real life, I believe they die. Like, they're very sensitive organisms. But I want to grab some, and I want to put them in my aquarium with my sea pickles and do some other neat things with them in my empire that I have no idea what I'll do with yet. Like, I just have to go grab them and do a little experimenting. Maybe you guys can give me some suggestions. Anyways, I kept sailing for about another 400 blocks from where I had left off that day before. So I made about another 400 blocks. I made 400 blocks further than I did the day before. So that was a good increase. Skipping those inlets and everything really paid off. And it paid off big. Because what did I discover that day, guys? From my boat, I saw a structure, the very top of it, like, kind of mixed in with the sand dunes. It was hard to, I don't know how I caught it, but I saw an orange or reddish type block there. And I think that's what stood out from all the sand, was that red block that I was like, wait, that doesn't look natural. So I pulled up to the shore. It was a steep dune, but I was able to climb out onto this dune. Like, I was able to make it to the top to see what it was exactly up there. I needed to check this out, and to my excitement, I discovered a very ancient relic that is in this game. And when I discovered this almost a year ago, getting back into Minecraft, I didn't know these existed. From 2013, when I first started playing Minecraft, and then I came upon this structure. Wow. It was a desert temple, guys, and it kind of blew my mind. Very cool. Wow, a desert temple. Like I said, I have never seen one of these before since I started playing Minecraft again. I was so elated. because it's exciting. Every time I find a new building, a lot of the time it just catches me off guard, and it makes me just think, what else is there to find in the game? It just makes me, it's almost like a snowball effect. I want to find more, and they just keep releasing more every year. And I love that about Minecraft, how they just keep developing it and making the worlds more complex. So I was elated finding this, and I want to describe this temple the best I can, especially for you people who have not found one yet, and I hope I'm not giving anything away. I hope everything I describe to you will be helpful. So like I said, from the shore, I came up, I landed, and I came up to this temple, and I got a good view and a good walk around of it. And these temples are kind of funny. They look like a pyramid, but it looks like the top's missing. The top being what is called the pyramidium, or the capstone. And that is the definition of the capstone, pyramidium, which pyramidium means little pyramid, is the very top of the pyramid. It's like the last stone that goes on top. So it's like you have this desert temple that's missing that last, that point, that makes it complete. But you can find all that at the Merriam-Webster.com dictionary. And it was really neat to see that, because if you go up there where the missing capstone is, there's a hole exposing the interior of the temple. And so you can decide to enter that way by going down into this hole, but I warn you not to, because you will sustain fall damage from entering at that height. It's fairly high off the surface. You're going to fall and hit the floor and take some damage. There's no way around that. So maybe I would recommend, if you have some of that sand that is everywhere around the temple, collect some of that, maybe 10 or so, go up to that hole and drop a few down and jump down on top of a stack. So that way it'll soften the fall and you won't sustain that damage. Or there is a safer way to enter this ancient tomb if it's not buried in sand. Like mine wasn't buried in sand. You could just use the front door. Don't be shy. You don't even have to knock. You can just go ahead and walk on it. Yes, a front entrance that lies in this front entrance lies between a 2-tower facade. There's like this tower on the left of the door or the entrance, and then one to the right on each corner of the building, if that makes sense. And it's not like you can go up to the very top of this tower. There's no ladder to it. It's more of an architectural design that was implemented to create a grander front hall in architecture. It's really cool, and I've read online, a lot of people make homes out of these desert temples because it's easy. It's right there. Voila, you have a house or a fort, or you have a temple to yourself now, a place to sleep in, at least if you get lit up well enough. They're really dark, so you gotta be weary on that too. Be careful, because hostile mobs will generate in those dark environments as well. Also, I want to go ahead and tell you that on these towers, you will see some orange terracotta blocks that is arranged in this apparent hieroglyph. It's very apparent that this is a symbol of sorts, something of importance, because it's on, I believe, each side of the tower, or at least 2 sides of the tower, the front and then to the side. You'll see if you click on the link that I'll provide. It's really neat to see. And what is described from this Minecraft wiki link is these symbols are what's considered to be the Ankh, and that's how you say it. It's spelled ANKH. And I want to describe the Ankh to you. First, it probably helps to go to say that this is ancient Egypt. So that's where this word derives from. It's an interesting word, and it's a very prevalent symbol. But I found another article from NPS.gov, or National Park Service, titled ANKH, Egyptian Symbol of Life, African Burial Ground National Monument. And like I said, that was at NPS.gov, and that was published in 2015. So it's a fairly old article, but Ankhs have been around for a long time. So it doesn't matter how old this article is. Ancient Egypt occurred a few millennia ago. So they go on to say, and I want to quote this, quote, "The Ankh symbol, sometimes referred to as the key of life, or the key of the Nile, is representative of eternal life in ancient Egypt. Created by Africans long ago, the Ankh is said to be the first or original cross," end quote. It goes on to say that some people believe that the Ankh could signify the link between heaven and earth as well. And once you look up this image, you will clearly see that it does look like a cross. So I could see why it would be considered the original cross. I want to go on to say others believe it also represents three elements that Egyptians held sacred, which being water, air, and the sun. So they thought maybe the Ankh could signify that as well. Also, the article states, and I found a lot of research on this as well, that the Ankh may be associated or maybe even be the same as the knot of Isis. They do look similar. They really do. In fact, I was wondering if this symbol on the temple was indeed the knot of Isis instead of an Ankh. I was actually going to say this was a knot of Isis because of how it. I'll also provide a picture of that, actually from an article by metmuseum.org in 2020. The knot of Isis was made from a blood red stone such as jasper. It's pretty, very pretty, this image. I don't know, there's just something intoxicating about how deep red this looks. A blood red, and they nailed it. It's just very beautiful. It's, to me, a similar color to the orangish red terracotta blocks that make the symbol on these desert temples in the game. That's what made me believe that maybe it was the knot of Isis, because I also went ahead and Googled that the knot of Isis is also typically red. Like I said, a blood red stone here, but it's usually red, as opposed to the Ankh these days is usually in a gold form when the symbol's made. So I don't know. Maybe the knot of Isis is more similar to being this symbol depicted in these ancient temples. I'll let you guys decide on that one. I think it go either way, but again, they say here in this article that they could be they've been considered to be the same thing as well. So there's a lot of theories being made about this symbol and why it's on the Minecraft Desert Temple. I mean, a lot. To me, it supports my theory that these temples were erected by ancient builders, though. I mean, for sure. It's just written all over. I think that the ancient builders built these to worship the creeper, because the creeper face is etched all over the exterior and the interior of this structure. It's inside and out. And with the Ankh, or whatever that symbol is, knot of Isis, being on the outside, the exterior of it, I believe that holds an association to power and high regard. And with the creeper face, as when people are worshiping something, they usually put up, or especially when they're carving it, it means that it has a powerful meaning behind it. So I don't see how this wasn't a place to worship creepers. I can't get past that. I think these desert temples were places where the ancient builders worshiped them. Like I said in Cleric's Cloak, episode 1, it's very evident to me. And it's now evident to me that when I was sailing, it was the orange terracotta blocks that caught my eye and made me notice this temple to begin with from the ocean. And so it was the Ankh that caught my attention. I should also mention that the whole building is made of sandstone, sand, and terracotta blocks. So it's basic construction materials. It's what was used laying around that biome, so they used the resources that were on hand. Now, if you go on the inside as you enter the main entrance, let's get to that part. You'll get blown up by 2 creepers. I'm joking. I'm not, but you probably won't, but I did. It seems like I'm starting a trend here. I'm getting killed doing research for every episode now. Seriously, I got killed again doing research on desert temples. I got killed by a polar bear when I was doing last episode and when I was typing away. Same thing. I was, the desert temple's just outside of the town Santa Fe, and so I was staying there, and I was inside the temple doing research, and you know what happened? I looked up from my laptop, and I saw a creeper come from behind a pillar in the ceremonial hall, and I just backed up far enough that it didn't kill me, but it just severely crippled me. And then guess what? I thought I was in the clear after that one. It blew me up to nearly death and destroyed the building. A second creeper came out. A second one came out from another column like snakes. It's like these guys were just everywhere, like some weird Indiana Jones type scenario, but instead of snakes, it was creepers. I hate creepers. But no, the second one was the death knell for the Dark Lord. He blew up. I died. I was actually at my desert outpost. It was the last place I set my respawn point, which was not far from the temple. So I tried to go back to retrieve my armor so I wasn't, naked in the world and vulnerable from after dying. And I went in there, and guess what? A zombie had picked up all my stuff. He was decked out in my armor, wielding my iron sword. I didn't have anything. I should have grabbed some stuff from the desert outpost. I wasn't thinking. I thought it'd be just a quick in and out. Well, he swung my sword at me and struck me. Almost killed me. Hit me again. I was dead in 2 blows. So I respawned yet again in the desert outpost. And I went back for my stuff again. But this time, thank goodness, this zombie had degenerated or disappeared somehow, and I was able to collect all my gear. It only took me dying 2 times to get it all back. The things I do for you people. No, I love my listeners. I'm willing to sacrifice my digital life in the name of research for this podcast. But now it makes sense to me why the desert temple has creeper faces all over it, because they're swarming it. They truly lurk everywhere in that place. And so be on the lookout, people, when you go into those temples. Because like I said, bring torches and light it up. I had torches in there, but I didn't do that good of a job. They came in anyways. I must have forgot one corner. So, I think those are places where they worship creepers, because they're also everywhere around that in the desert as well. And go give episode 1 a listen if you don't know what I'm talking about desert temples and creeper worshiping. Now, I would like to talk about some secret rooms that this temple holds, and let's touch base on a little bit of archaeology in the desert temple and the desert, guys. Okay, everybody, let's get into the nitty-gritty of these desert temples, and let's get to the loot part of it. Why we are here, right? We all want that loot. That's what we're doing roaming this earth, is for more goods for us to have to make us more powerful. And wow, these have a lot of it, and these are worth checking out. I mean, don't bypass a desert temple. You won't anyways. They're huge and they're worth seeing. I mentioned that these temples house 2 secret rooms. Maybe I didn't say 2 secret rooms. Well, guess what? There's 2 secret rooms in these temples, people. When you enter the temple, let's say from the front entrance, like normal people go through, right? We don't just jump down like through chimneys and land into the room. Let's go through the front. And when you enter the front, you will enter a huge hall with pillars on each side and creeper faces etched into sandstone all over. The same hall where I got blown up and died. Anyways, in this hall, on the floor, you will see what the wiki article describes as a wind rose pattern. This pattern is made from the same orange terracotta blocks that compose the Ankhs on the exterior of this building. This wind rose, however, will have a slight yet noticeable difference than the Ankh. And these wind rose patterns are not Ankhs. They are different in shape. So I just want to let you know that they're just a different pattern altogether. But this one will be a little bit noticeably different because there will be a blue terracotta block in the mix of these orange ones that are making the pattern. It will stand out to you. Like, you will notice it. Usually, when you see something obscure like that, probably indicating something's underneath it, something unusual. I would dig it up, and I did. Well, actually, I should say, my brother, the Sun King, dug it up. He was the first one to excavate out there. It is his land, but he brought me out there after he saw what he brought up. And you will find a nice surprise for yourself if you dig underneath that. It's a secret room. It is very cool. I mean, any secret rooms are neat, I wish they had a way where we could pull a book and the bookshelf would come out and expose a secret room. I think that would be cool because I love secret rooms. I use pistons for secret rooms and whatnot. It's fun. But I warn you to be very careful upon discovering this particular secret room. Do not just jump down there. Bring ladder, like I said. It's a little bit of a steep jump down. There are 4 chests down there, 4 double chests down there. But don't be hasty and jump down there because you will die. It is rigged up to blow you up. And all 4 chests along with you. And everything contained in those chests. I personally went down there like a little Hurt Locker person, and I removed 9 blocks of TNT that were rigged to a pressure plate that was meticulously placed in the center of all these chests. So I make this suggestion. I would dig down in a staircase fashion. You know what I mean? Dig your block, 1, and then another one in front, and then down in elevation. Go down another block, 1 in front, and then down and around in like a staircase. Make a staircase down to it, or bring ladder and do ladder down. Just don't jump down there because you'll get blown up and lose everything. 9 blocks of TNT, guys. I'll do some serious damage. They aren't messing around, these ancient builders. They were hiding their goodies down there. They didn't want anybody to mess with it. So be careful. Don't fall. Maybe put a bed upstairs and set that respawn point before you dig, so in case you do die, you'll just regenerate not far. And you can go collect your stuff in a bunch of sand blocks that are now everywhere from the explosion. And if you do finally disarm the bombs, you'll be very happy because you'll soon realize that this was worth your little digital life. It was worth the risk because there is a whole bunch of loot to be potentially found down there. Let me just name off a few of the things that you may find in those chests. And I'm just naming the things that were listed online. These aren't things that you will find 100% time. Nothing, these are probabilities. But the ones that caught my eye. And I want to start. with, you can find enchanted books in these chests, saddles, which you can always use a saddle, since for some reason we can't craft one for ourselves, which I think is ridiculous because we can craft boots and leather armor, but we lost the ability or the knowledge to craft a simple saddle. It makes no sense to me. They need to change that in the game. Sorry, Mojang, you guys need to change that. Anyways, moving on, you can find golden and enchanted apples, which, if you remember me from the last episode, I stated that golden apples are worth a lot. What is it? 8 gold ingots to make a golden apple. So that's it. That's some good treasure, guys. Also, you could find some gold and iron ingots in those chests, emeralds, dune armor. I want this because I just found sea coastal armor, guys. You remember when I said I haven't ever found a treasure map? Well, right after that episode of maps, map rooms, and compasses, that day after producing that podcast, I found a treasure map underwater and some sea coastal armor. So I would love to find some dune armor to add to my collection. So cool. So cool. I did not find any in my temple. Anyways, you can also find some diamond and gold horse armor, very useful, and makes your horse look very cool. Makes you look like a knight. Makes you look powerful. I love it. Not just the use of it to protect my horse. I think it looks cool. Also, guys, you can find some diamonds. A chance of diamonds in those. So lots of goodies. So get to digging. Don't touch that pressure plate. And be careful not to get blown up. Now, let's move on to the second room. I haven't found a second room. Now, the second secret room, I can only describe to you from what I read, because it's been elusive to me. I dug under the first secret room, right? The first one I described to you, I dug underneath it. I dug at all corners of my temple. I dug straight through it like a worm in an apple, and I found no second secret room in mine. However, I want to go on and tell you what to expect. Wiki goes on to say that it is connected to the main floor by collapsed stairs. So I'm guessing an old staircase well leading to this room. I saw a picture online. It was interesting. It goes on to describe this room will be about 5 by 5, 5 blocks by 5 blocks wide. And we'll have another one of those orange terracotta wind rose patterns on the floor down there. And from what I read, you will have to work for your treasure here by doing a little bit of archaeology on some suspicious sand. So that brings me into archaeology, folks. And so I want to delve into the archaeology section of today's episode. I want to touch base on part of the game that I have not succeeded in yet, and that would be in the archaeology department. Not to say that I haven't tried, but I want to go ahead and say this, and I found something interesting. Archaeology appears to have been a stubborn concept to get into the game, and it's been stubborn towards me. I have not found anything when I've tried to do archaeology. But anyways, according to Wiki, archaeology was delayed by 3 years. It was first announced on October 3rd, 2020 that they wanted to put this into the game. But it was not implemented until 1.20 was released in 2023. And along with that release, it also introduced to us the brush, decorated pots, suspicious sand and gravel, and the elusive pottery sherds that I want. I want the sherds. Now, I have gone to the desert wells and looked around them, studied them, jumped into the water to try to find suspicious sand. I have. I have a desert well that my first one I discovered was right outside the Sun King's city of Santa Fe. and I was out exploring, and I saw this little structure out there, and I went up to it, and I read online that there was suspicious sand in the bottom underneath the water of these things. And so I tried, and I was not successful. I didn't see anything. I pretty much destroyed this little desert well trying to find suspicious sand so I could find artifacts, but I failed. Or maybe it just didn't generate for me, you know? And I want to go on to talk about how I found another article about suspicious blocks, because I know I'm talking a lot about suspicious sand, and you might be like, well, what's suspicious sand? And it's important in archaeology. Suspicious sand is one of two. If you didn't catch that, I also mentioned gravel when it was introduced to 1.20. So there was suspicious sand and suspicious gravel introduced into the game. And these are considered pretty rare blocks in the game. They can contain a lot of interesting artifacts, though. So if you happen to find these, you'll want to not to destroy them. Let's put it that way. You will have to dust away or extract this artifact if you have one of these blocks by brushing the block in a to and fro fashion, like archaeologists do. You know, when they find a dinosaur, you see them out there slowly brushing away at it. Well, it's a lot faster in Minecraft. It only takes 4 seconds until the block drops the artifact. However, these blocks to me look very similar to regular sand and gravel blocks. You have to have kind of a keen eye to see these. Maybe that's what I've been doing, because if you just pick it with a pickaxe without brushing, it's going to destroy the block and you're not going to get the artifact inside. It's gone forever. So I may have done that by accident. I may have accidentally destroyed what I wanted. Like I said, it takes 4 seconds for the block to drop the artifact. During those 4 seconds, while you're sitting there brushing away at the block, you'll slowly see the object appear, which I think is very cool. It kind of entices you to keep brushing, right? And it's very realistic, because when you're brushing something away, you're slowly exposing what is hidden in that, what you want to get to. And let me just touch base on this real quick, because if you're going to brush a block, you're going to want to have a brush. And if you want to make a brush, I'm just going to let you know you need 1 feather, 1 copper ingot, and 1 stick. Very cheap, very easy. You guys probably don't like all the copper you have right now. Well, maybe you're hoarding it for when they release the new update with copper blocks. But before, people were griping a lot about copper. I like copper. I love the aesthetic value of it. I love the patina that it has when it starts to become weathered. But yeah, that's something you can make besides just a lightning rod. You can use a feather, a copper ingot, and a stick to make a brush. Brushing these suspicious blocks will reveal several rarities. And let me get to that. Such as pottery sherds. Like I mentioned, I really want these pottery sherds. And let me go on to say, from what I researched in Wiki, there is a grand total of 20 pottery sherds, each one having a different design for a decorative pot that you can make. And you need 4 pieces of sherds or brick to make a decorated pot. You probably already know this by now, because you can make decorated pots, but they're blank with just brick. It won't have like a cool emblem or a design or any artistic value really besides the pot itself. But if you find one of these sherds or 3 of these sherds, for example, you could use 3 sherds and 1 brick to make a decorated pot, or 2 sherds that you found and 2 brick, and so on to make a decorated pot. And I just want to let you guys know that so you can go ahead and make these decorated pots, because I think they are cool. And I don't know if you guys know this now, but with that recent update that didn't happen too long ago, you can now contain objects in pots. So why not do it with a decorated pot? I mean, decorated pots just add more art to your villages or your towns, whatever you want to call them, and it gives more lore that you can play off of with these designs on the pots, or even add more headcanon to your personal realm. So I think these are all really worth checking out and trying to collect all 20, which I am at ground 0 in that search. Like, I haven't found one. So I'm going to be on the lookout for sherds in the desert, guys. Oh, wow. So I want to get back to that secret room when I was talking about suspicious sand, because in that second secret room, I didn't elaborate because I wanted to get into the archaeological section of it. You'll find in the second room no tracer chests, but suspicious sand. And like I just mentioned, you can brush that away. And what you may find in some of the suspicious sand in that second secret room in the desert temple is, let me read off this little list of things I found. You could find a diamond. That would be nice, right? Or some TNT. Heck, I don't ever really use TNT, but now that I have 9 of them from disarming those in the desert temple, I'm going to blow some stuff up, I think. Also, this says you could find an emerald. That's useful. And gunpowder, which is also useful for fireworks and to make more TNT. Also, there's a possibility in those suspicious blocks down the second secret room of finding the potential of 4 different sherds. But I'm not going to name to you what the possibility of those sherds could be. I want to let that be a surprise for you. Because if I don't want to give that everything away, guys. There needs to be a little element of surprise for you, for what you can find down in those. I'm not going to be a spoiler for you all. And before we move on to desert life, yep, that's what I'm going to be getting to after archaeology, I need to mention that another structure that lies randomly in the desert would be that well again, right? Well, I forgot to mention that the well is made from sandstone blocks and slabs. And as I mentioned, there's water in these wells, and it's worth mentioning while I am in archaeology and describing the wells to you that water is very rare in the desert, and you will want to utilize this water in the dry atmosphere. I just want to let you, I know I already talked about the well, but I wanted to get back to that there is actually water in there, and you can use that, especially if you're going to build a village and you need to, get some crops going for that village. This is a very important element out here in this arid climate. And also, as I said, there's suspicious sand where you can perform archaeological digs and find potential loot out in these little wells. I just haven't found any yet. I have bad luck with finding ancient artifacts. But in those wells, you may find an emerald, suspicious stew, or more pottery sherds in those wells. I forgot to mention those to you when I was first talking about wells, but there you are. Stew, that'd be very helpful because, well, it depends on what type of suspicious stew it is. It might hurt you, make you go blind or something, but heck, maybe it'll help it, maybe it'll heal you. But again, more pottery sherds, like I said. And those are just examples of what can be found in those wells. And I think these little water-bearing towers are just a hopeful sight in such a place so seemingly void of life. Yet, there is life in this place. You just need to keep looking and look in the right places, which brings me on to desert life. Desert life. It's hard to live in the desert. Very hard. It lacks many resources that are essential for survival in this game. I remember when the Sun King discovered what is now called Santa Fe, not far from the desert temple that I had discovered that I told you in my story. We built an outpost about 160 blocks away from that town so we could sleep there at night, and while during the day we attempted to build a wall around the town to protect it, which was a huge obstacle to do. It was probably the hardest town to protect, and I will tell you why. Husks are everywhere. They are everywhere. It has every hostile mob out in the desert that you can think of, plus the husk which doesn't die when the sun comes up. So all the biome terrors, such as creepers, spiders, skeletons, all are out there lurking around and are potentials to kill you. And those husks, I just want to keep on saying they don't die in the sun because they have rags that cover their body that prevent them from burning. These rags make them look like little corn husks. That's why I think they're called husks, because they have just these little rags on that partially cover them. Anyways, you must keep both your eyes out for these while out in the desert during the day at all times because they also impose a menacing bite. If bit by one of these, you will be infected with a hunger effect. So they weaken you and make you hungry in a place that lacks a variety of food. But that brings me to the rabbit. Again, just like in the snow biome, the rabbit is numerous here in the desert. The rabbit will be your friend, people. It is your source of food. In fact, the rabbit is the only naturally generative creature out in this biome. If you remember, again, last week's episode titled Snow Biomes, A Winter Wonderland, then you would remember that these rabbits are very useful. I just need to drive that home. I just want to drive that home to you because they will drop one rabbit meat and or a leather rabbit hide. Sorry, tongue twister. They will drop a leather rabbit hide or have that potential. And if you gather 4 rabbit hides, that will give you the ability to craft 1 piece of leather, which you can use to craft armor. I know that sounds like a pain. You're going to have to collect and kill a bunch of rabbits, but hey, you have to do what you can do in survival. If you want to find any other life besides the rabbit and a bunch of murderous mobs out there in the desert, well, you're going to have to find a town like I did or my brother did in Sept. And they're out there, people. Just keep looking. You will find a town. It will generate. I guarantee you, if you look hard enough, you'll find one. But let's get back to Santa Fe. Santa Fe is a typical desert town. And I just want to describe it to you because I'm there right now in the game. And it's a cool town. It is composed of all the same elements of the desert temple. I'm just looking around here because I want to describe it to you. The town is made of sandstone and that reddish orange terracotta blocks that they use to give a little pop and a little bit architectural flair to their buildings. I would say that these terracotta blocks are more of a brown instead of that orange that was used to form the Ankhs symbol on the desert temple, but it gives a nice little variety to their buildings. And they also use sandstone blocks with some etchings in it and whatnot. And they have, in Santa Fe, they have a mason there. He has a little room with terracotta blocks and glazed terracotta in there. And it's a decent sized town. It's not one of the biggest in my realm, but it's a unique one. They have a cow pen set up there with 10 hay bales in town, which is funny because none of them grow wheat. They all grow carrots. Maybe they trade with a neighboring community. I don't know, for hay, and maybe they give carrots for hay bales. I'm not sure. But these hay bales is a great food source and was a pleasant surprise because I could use that hay to feed the cows in order to breed them up and get a good population of cows going so I could have beef out in the desert and not rely on rabbits. And everybody knows that cows are about the best food source because you get leather to make books and armor and frames and all the other fun stuff you can do with leather, but they also provide you beef, which is a great source of sustenance and filling those saturation points up to the max. I love cow beef. For food, I have a cow farm in multiple cities. I'm not lacking in the meat department, people. But if you need fuel to cook this meat, I want to go ahead and let you know the desert is full of dead bushes. It is everywhere and plentiful. Again, I know this is almost like rabbits, but if you break a dead bush, it has a chance of dropping a stick, which can be useful for making new tools or weapons, or even for cooking and smelting in a furnace. Yes, you can use the sticks to do a variety of things. It might take you a while and you might have to bust up a lot, But like I said, you have to do what you can to survive. Another very cool animal that was recently introduced to the game that's part of life in the desert amongst the villagers, the mobs, the hostile mobs, and the rabbits, and the cacti, that would be the camel. I hate to say this, but Santa Fe does not have one. I have not personally found one. I think we discovered this particular town before the camel was released, and so it just never generated in our town. So I probably need to go find another desert city, and I bet there will be a camel out there. It's a wild guess, but it's my best one. Anyways, I want to touch base on the real-life camel before we delve into the Minecraft camel. I want to talk about camels, people, because they're one of the newest creatures to be added to the Minecraft game, in particular to the desert. And they're very cool creatures. And that's why I'm going to start this off with the Earth camel, not the Overworld camel. And before I jump into the Minecraft camel, I just need to give you a few facts on the living, breathing one from an article I found on PBS titled Camel Fact Sheet Blog Nature. And this was posted September 2020. And you can find this at www.pbs.org, and that link will be in the show description. Like I said, I found some really cool facts. I want to start off. Did you know that camels have a life expectancy of nearly 18 years? For some reason, I thought maybe they lived much longer than that. So I'm sorry, camels. 18 years is a pretty good amount of time, but I thought maybe they were like around for 50 years or so. But deserts are pretty tough places to live, I imagine, especially after reading some of these facts. Also, there are two types of camels on Earth, which I learned. I may have known this earlier in my life, but it was good to know again. Let me see here. The most common one, and these are all domesticated on Earth of this variety of camel, one of the two, is called the dromedary camel, also known as the Arabian camel. And then the other one, which can be domesticated or found in the wild still, is called the Bactrian camel. Now, let's get back to the dromedary camel. Like I said, this is the most used one on Earth. In fact, 90% of people, let me see here. I got my facts all mixed up, or my wording mixed up. These camels are used for 90% of all camel use in the world. 10% are Bactrian camels, 90% the dromedaries. That's what I was trying to say. So those are the go-to camel for the people that use them in the world. And they're primarily used for transportation, which is probably what first comes into your head, but they're also used for milk production and also for textiles from the fur. Another cool fact is the camel can walk up to 20 miles a day out in that hot desert. And we humans have been using them for around 3,000 years. Another cool thing is a camel can get up to 6 foot 6 inches tall at their shoulders. And again, I'll leave this link in the description, guys. I thought it was pretty cool stuff. But moving on to the Minecraft camel. Like I said, I have not found the camel yet, which I would really love to, because I'm about to read off some really cool facts that make me jealous of people that do have camels. And from what I read, they're very amazing. First off, the camel, when saddled, can carry 2 people, which I'm trying to think. Only the boat can do that, I believe. So I think that would be very cool to have a terrestrial transport that can carry me and, let's say, the Sun King across the desert or anywhere else. So yeah, you and your friend can ride together. I think that's really cool. Also, I mentioned in real life, they're 6 foot 6 inches tall up to their shoulders. Well, you'll be safe from zombies riding them in the game, even because a camel sits up so high, zombies will not be able to bite you. Actually, a few hostile mobs won't be able to harm you. So that's another advantage for having a camel. It's just really cool. They may be slower than a horse, but it's also worth noting. Let me see here that they can tread through 3 blocks of water, 3 blocks deep. So you can go through water unlike a horse. That is really cool. Oh, and also, camels, I guess, in this game will just randomly sit down, like lay down on their stomach for 7 seconds and nothing can move them. Nothing at all. And by the way, if you get a couple camels, guys, I would go ahead and breed them because, like I said, I think there's only camels in villages, natural spawning villages. So they seem to be kind of rare because villages, at least in my world, are very far and wide apart. I have a desolate world, so I don't foresee finding too many camels. But if you have a couple, you may want to breed them, and you can do so by feeding them cacti or cactus. Funny thing is, they can still get hurt by cacti if they bump into it, but they eat it. You can breed them with it, but they still get hurt by it if they hit it themselves. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I need to find a camel. I really do. I hope you guys find a camel. I think it would be great for transporting large amount of items. You and your friend can each be packed full of, let's say, sand, and you can travel back to whatever the closest town is and probably not get harmed by mobs. I just think that is so useful to know, and just makes me want to go now back out to the Great Farthian Desert and just meander and try to find another village and proclaim a camel for myself. So cool, guys. That's deserts, everyone. That pretty much wraps up the show. A lot to them. I feel as if I could have stretched this out to a 2-part episode, honestly. I didn't expect there to be so much, and I'm starting to learn the more and more I produce these episodes. There's just a wealth of knowledge to be learned from this game and so much information. It makes me happy to report all this back to you, and I hope you guys love it as much as I do. Again, there's just so much more to discover out there in that desert that meets the eye. But I bet you want to go find a desert biome now if you haven't already. And if you do find one, you will definitely want to look for desert temples and desert wells and villages. There is so much loot to be found in the 2 secret rooms within the temple. It's insane. Talk about a treasure trove. And the archaeological digs you can do with all the suspicious sand found in these places, wow, makes you think. There's a lot of lore that can be found out in that sand, such as all the creeper depictions carved into the desert temple walls, or all the pottery sherds that can be made into decorative pots. Let your imagination just run wild with this headcanon you can create for your realm. You also know that you want to find a village, like I stated. This is a great place for a refuge and other resources that the desert does not provide for you, such as the chance for cattle and camels to spawn in villages. After reading about the camels in this game, it just made me want to go find another town in hopes of it generating one. I want a camel! I want to ride across a desert out of reach from the husks and traverse shallow water with a friend on the back. So much cool things to discover and to do out in the desert. I hope that this gave you all some ideas of what to expect or some new ideas for your desert biome. Like, for example, the temperature gauges. Me dropping that on you guys, that, what was it, negative 0.7 to 2.0 being the hottest. I can't wait to put up signs in White Ridge, Seed Town, Silhouette City, Charmois, etc. All my other towns with temperature gauges stating what people will expect when they arrive there. As always, my friends, it has been an absolute pleasure being your host, the Dark Lord. And until next Thursday, I bid you all to keep crafting, exploring, and using that imagination. Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that plus sign up there and follow me so you can get my latest weekly episodes sent directly to you. Send this podcast to your friends, comment on each episode and take a poll. And don't forget to rate the show. This will help me improve the show. Also, you can find me at what was formerly called Twitter, but now is X at Realm News 24/7. Again, at Realm News 247. There, you will find some of the cool articles and videos from my research and polls, and also other Minecraft-related content.